Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Tabansi. I want to welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamers Pro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, and entertainment. When we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see them. And today we have a pretty interesting show for you guys. But before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to follow me on Instagram, my name is Charles Tabansi. My handle is CTABANZ. If you want to follow the channel, same name as the channel on Instagram. And also, if you want today's full show before it comes out, it is streaming for free on Apple Podcasts and Spotify in the comment section below. Let me get into this topic here. So it's like I'm having this emotional breakdown over the Clippers, man. Every single day I'm posting something about the Clippers or producing a Clippers show, or I'm ranting about something in the comment section. The reason I've been so upset with this Clippers team is this, because this Clippers team has been letting down its supporters for the last 3-4 years. 2019-20 season, that team was supposed to be the team to go and win the NBA championship. And of course, as you guys know, they blew a 3-1 lead in the Orlando bubble. Next year, I believe Kawhi Leonard got injured or something to that effect. And then he came back. He was in the playoffs and he got injured there. And then the following season, him and Paul George are out of the lineup. And then last season, which was supposed to be the season where we're like, okay, finally, we're going to see this thing come to fruition. Kawhi gets injured in the first game of the playoffs. Paul George never even steps foot on the court during the playoffs. So at that point, I had started reaching my breaking point with this team. A lot of people in the media were asking, should the Clippers kind of go all in for one more year or find a way to move one of their key guys? Nevertheless, the Clippers decided this was going to be the year where they're going to give it their best shot to see what this team could look like, because they always felt that they had everything that they needed to be a competitive team. But for whatever reason, they always felt that they had everything to be a competitive team. And coming into this season, however, they said that the only question was going to be health and a commitment to the regular season. So I thought that's what it was going to be. Kawhi Leonard thus far this season hasn't missed a single game of the Clippers this season, right? So coming into this season, it was never a question of whether or not the Clippers were good enough. We all knew this. We knew they would have beaten the brakes off of the Phoenix Suns had Paul George been healthy, because they were beating them with just Kawhi Leonard. So why would I feel like they wouldn't win that series if they had a healthy Paul George? And Kawhi was playing all the games. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, we started hearing rumors that the Clippers are interested in pursuing James Harden, who had turned himself into a total nuisance with the Philadelphia 76ers. And when that idea was initially being floated, I, like many people out there, scratching my head asking the question, why would you go after James Harden? Why would you do that? Everywhere he's gone, he has been a nuisance. And now you want to bring him into the fold? And the second question I was asking is, why do they feel like they need James Harden? But for whatever reason, the Clippers decided to be the only team in the NBA that decided to go after James Harden. Now, some people saying other teams would be interested in him. Where were these teams? Where were these teams? A lot of NBA players, current and former, were asking, is this going to be the last year James Harden is going to be in the NBA? So the Clippers were the only team that went out there to go get him. And then what happens? They get James Harden. And ever since the arrival of James Harden, the Clippers have not won a single game. Now, I want to quickly address a quick point. Some people out there were saying, oh, well, what were the Clippers before? The Clippers, I believe, were one game above 500 before James Harden got there. And they were going to be a much better team. So it wasn't like as if they weren't going to be a good team. I had no doubt about the Clippers before James Harden got there. So people are trying to make it seem like the Clippers were on this 25-game losing streak before Harden got there. And then all of a sudden, the Clippers had lost one game before James Harden got there. Like, what are we talking about? So some people are trying to play that card. So what happened? Yesterday, they went into Denver, and I already knew that they were going to lose. I didn't care if they lost by 3 points, by 1 point, by 20 points. I knew they were going to lose. And that is exactly what happened at the end of the day. Then we can say, oh, they lost by just 3. They lost. A loss is a loss. They lost. So there are no second place prizes in the NBA. You lost. So at the end of the game, they asked Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith and these guys to weigh in on what they think about the Clippers and their reasoning behind going out there to trade for James Harden. So for those of you who didn't miss it, who didn't see it, we want to play exactly what Charles Barkley and Kenny and Shaq had to say about how the Clippers managed to turn themselves into the biggest joke in the NBA. Take a listen to what Charles Barkley had to say here.
Let's go to the Clipper game. You lose this one. There were all kinds of questions, all kinds of statements being made by players and by coaches about here. It's going to take time. We're trying to get on the same page. We need James to be James, and all this.
If you actually looked at that game, you saw their problems in a nutshell. They didn't make their run until they took James out the game. You go back and look, when they were down double digits, When they took James out the game, that's when they made their run. When Russ was playing primarily the point, that was the first issue, because James and Russ can't play together. Secondly, their lack of size. Like,
yeah, when Zubac gets in trouble, yeah.
And Zubac, he don't fit with those other four guys, because the court is so stagnant. So they can't play James and Russ together. But I think they traded all their size away to Philadelphia. So man, it's gonna be interesting.
They've been outscored by 70 in the 5 games when James Harden has been on the floor. Yeah, what are the positives, Shaq, you take away that if you're Ty Lue? And you heard Reggie in the broadcast. He said you won't get a real good read on this team until close to the All-Star break when you see how things come together. So what do you take away that's positive if you're Ty Lue?
Well, his only mistake tonight, you talked about switching everything. You have a big. Joker's not your average big, because even though you do all this pick and roll and you get him in a disadvantage, what you gonna do on the other end? What you gonna do on the other end? So, with the small ball, didn't work. Like he said, Joker just posted up. He either took him one-on-one or he made plays. I don't really see a lot of positives. I mean, they got back in the game. What I never liked about the Clippers is they wait till late to come back and they try to hero ball, Paul with the step back thing like that. That's not how you win a championship. That's not how you get better. I would have liked to, seen them today. Because they played hard. They played hard. James played hard. I like to see them today win by 20, so we can say, okay, this works, this works, this works. But it's it's not really much to read on, especially when you lose 6 games in a row. Chuck made a great point. A lot of those guys can't play together in combinations, and they can't go small against a guy that could score on the other end. Not Minnesota.
And I know Reggie's point. Like when you go to a new team, you have a bunch of new. Well, James is actually the only new piece. It shouldn't take 30 games. But the problem I disagree with Reggie on is, it's not the players. It's the players. It's not the time. Like James and Russ, they're not gonna change. They both need the ball to be effective. Same thing with PG and Kawhi. So they're all terrific players. But the one thing about basketball, you got to find a way to help your team. James and Russ, they need the ball to be effective. They're not going to change now. They need to play a lot faster. And I do think they need a trade, because you can't go out there with one big guy, because you got to go against Joker. You got to go against Anthony Davis. If you're gonna be the best team just in your own building, you can't, because the Lakers got a big team also. Don't forget Christian Wood, and you got the other kid who they just came over from New Orleans. I forget his name right off the bat. But you can't have one big guy.
It would help to get Mason Plumlee in there for sure, as he is out.
Yes.
For the Clips.
Well, there's a saying, the same things that make you laugh make you cry. And he said it in a nutshell. What makes him laugh and jovial is they can't guard us when we're small. Team's going to have difficulty when they're playing well. But when you're small, what makes you cry is he said, well, then we couldn't, like Shaq said, we can't guard him inside. So in the key moments of when you need a basket, they're able to get it easily where you're working for it. So this to me is not about, I heard you say about the players. To me, it's about now, he's done a great job to this point, but it's about Tyronn Lue. He has to create an offense to develop where all of these guys can coexist. That is what he's going to have to do over these 20 games that Reggie's talking about. Create an offense that plays faster, that small ball can rebound, or if you get a trade, well, that would be the best scenario. But you have to create that. And now this is why coaches get paid. This is his job.
So you heard what Charles Barkley had to say there. There was another stat that they revealed, which was the Clippers have been outscored by 70 points with Harden on the floor. 70 points. 70. There was no other Clipper player prior to the James Harden acquisition that had that type of statistic. There was no other. No other. Some people are talking about, oh, well, James Harden had an efficient night and all. Who cares? They lost. They lost. I don't care about his efficient night. My issue is, why is this guy even on the team? This is my question. Look at the box score from yesterday. Look at this. Paul George scores 35 points in that game. Kawhi Leonard shoots 35% from the field. James Harden he shoots 46% from the field. He scores 21. And Norman Powell comes off the bench with 14 points. Do you notice anything wrong with that box score? Do you notice anything wrong with this box score? What's wrong with this box score is there's always one key player that's going to be affected because of the addition of James Harden. In this case, it was Russell Westbrook, who shot 4-12, who shot 33% from the field for only 8 points, and their best player, Kawhi Leonard, who's basically now been relegated to a player trying to find his way in an offense. You went from being the best player on this team to a player trying to find his way on the offense. And to me, I am still baffled as to why Ty Lue keeps on saying James just needs to be himself. He needs to be more aggressive. Well, what exactly does that look like? I heard James Harden say, well, being aggressive is not just about scoring, it's about making. What exactly does that look like? Here's the problem with the Clippers. Here's the problem. The Clippers have too many offensive players that need the ball. Case closed. That's problem one. That's problem one. You've now created a problem because these guys are now role players. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to turn them into role players. That's essentially what you're trying to do. Only the Clippers will take superstars and then try to turn them into role players. That's the first problem. The second problem, and it was something that Charles Barkley alluded to, when they go to that small ball lineup, they're simply too small. I saw the highlights of the game because I did not bother to waste my time staying up in the UK at some ungodly time to watch the Clippers lose. I already knew they were going to lose. I already knew this. So instead, I was looking at the highlights, and when you have that small ball lineup, some people were saying, oh, well, Kawhi Leonard, he could play the 4. Really? Can he? Can he defend against Nikola Jokic when they post him up or when he gets to Victor Zubac in foul trouble? Really? Can he? What was happening when the Clippers went to that small ball lineup? They would post one of their forwards or their guards. It would draw a double team, which meant that there was going to be another man open. To me, this thing isn't. I don't care. I know you're only allowed about 60 days before you can trade a player after you traded for him. I don't care to know what this team is going to look like, because what's going to happen is there's going to be this situation where there's fool's gold. The Clippers will go on, they'll win a game, and then some people will be like, oh, you see, it's working, and then they'll go out there and lose another 3 games. To me, I think they need to find a way to blow up this thing. I'm not supporting this team no more. I'm not. It's too frustrating because these are all self-inflicted wounds. I am beyond disgusted with the Clippers. Beyond it. The executives that thought this would have been a good idea, Ty Lue is not out there trying to scrap. Ty Lue looks like he's under more duress than he is during the playoffs. And this all has to do with the addition of James Harden and trading away all of their versatility in their defense. It makes no sense.